investigates is taking the city of Chicago to court to obtain records related to the migrant crisis.
For months, our team has reported on problems inside migrant shelters here in the city and has exposed how millions in taxpayer dollars were being spent. And tonight, we're trying to understand why certain city records were withheld. Investigative reporter Bennett Haberly joining us now with more. Bennett.
Yeah, Allison, Stephan, public records are vital to our reporting and to the public's right to know. In our quest to understand how the city responded to the migrant crisis, we combed over thousands of pages of reports, and in doing so, realized we may be missing some more. And now we're suing to obtain what should be public information. At its height, Chicago's migrant crisis involved housing as many as 15,000 people, and in some cases meant having them live in crowded buildings. This once vacant warehouse was converted into the city's largest shelter in Pilsen, which at one time housed 2,500 people. Last month, NBC5 Investigates first reported how the city's own records helped identify potential gaps in the city's response to migrants' health needs. These records noted as far back as October, the city was aware that overcrowding individuals at the shelters put both new arrivals and shelter staff at higher risk of contagious illnesses, and that the lack of space within the shelter system created increased challenges to place people and provide them with initial health care. It was during that reporting process that we realized we may be missing 2 weeks' worth of documents.
It shouldn't take a lawsuit to get access to this kind of information, but this administration is increasingly making it impossible for people to get records unless they go to court.
Attorney Matt Topic represents NBC5 Investigates. His firm filed the complaint on our behalf, alleging the city failed to comply with the state's Freedom of Information Act.
I think we've now filed 10 lawsuits for different clients for records about the migrant crisis, where the administration is just refusing to often even bother to respond to requests.
What's not clear is if these records don't exist at all or if they're being withheld. Joe Ferguson with the Civic Federation, a nonpartisan government research group, says anytime a news outlet has to sue for public records, it can impact public trust in government.
If you don't have it, say you don't have it and say why you don't have it. I think every one of these instances where the media has to file a lawsuit because, by all appearances, there is a hide the ball game that is going on, which then raises only more questions.
It is worth noting, in many cases, the city agencies request an extension of these requests, meaning it could be weeks or months before the public records are available. We'll certainly keep you posted on this case. We did reach out, by the way, to the city for response. We're still waiting to hear back. Allison?
So glad you're staying on it. Thanks so much, Bennett.
Sure.
NBC5 Investigates continues to follow the money and the hundreds of millions of dollars spent on the city's migrant crisis.
Now, while the city has created a website to track migrant spending, our team found there are still many aspects of this that are shrouded in secrecy. Here's investigative reporter Bennett Haberly.
As migrants begin to move out of shelters, invoices are still rolling in. The city of Chicago spent nearly $300 million on the migrant crisis so far, with more than $206 million paid to Kansas-based Favorite Healthcare Staffing, which staffs the migrant shelters. But not much is known about how these buildings are selected, or how much the property owners earn from lease agreements. Answering that is difficult, in part because of how the city structured its migrant operation.
It feels a little more translucent than transparent. Right, you'll get some information, but not the full picture.
The city's migrant spending website shows more than $45 million have gone to a Louisville company, Equitable Social Solutions.
That's where a number of those leases are.
Mayor Brandon Johnson's office says Equitable helps facilitate and identify shelters through the help of another company, ReloShare. For months, NBC5 Investigates has asked for copies of the leases for the 27 shelters the city operated. Through a series of Freedom of Information Act requests, we received just 9 agreements. Those missing include lease agreements for the city's largest and most expensive shelters.
You should not have to go through the hoops that you've gone through just to get to partial information.
Joe Ferguson is Chicago's former Inspector General. He's now with the Civic Federation, a nonpartisan government research group.
We absolutely should know at every step of the way where the public's money is going to so that we can make an assessment as to whether or not it is being used well.
What we do know after reviewing hundreds of pages of invoices is how millions of dollars have flowed to these companies for the operation and use of the buildings. Take, for example, the city's largest shelter in Pilsen. Housing 2,300 migrants cost city taxpayers $38,000 for a single night. That's $280,000 a week, or more than $2.5 million over the course of 3 months. It was a similar story over at this Ogden shelter. For 3 months, $1.8 million. And at the end of Chicago, which at one time provided 1,500 beds, the cost $344,000 a week. If you total that out to a year, it's more than $17 million. It's tough to say how that money was divided up. Equitable Social Solutions directed our questions back to the city. ReloShare did provide a statement, but it didn't answer any of our questions, and the property owners either didn't return our calls or would not comment. If there are public dollars involved, shouldn't the public know where they flow?
100%.
Alderman Andre Vasquez chairs the City Council's Migrant Committee. He said even aldermen have had a hard time accounting for how these dollars have been spent.
I think something that we've been looking at is how to really get more mandated reporting from the government as they're making decisions, because our constituents are asking us those very questions.
I'm not looking to make any money on this.
Randy Schifrin told me he offered up a vacant property on South Michigan Avenue to the city last fall for $1 a year. The city, he said, passed on the offer.
They made a date with me to come and view the building, her and her group, and then at the very last minute, they were called back.
In response to other reporting that the city had months ago turned down offers for other potential shelter sites from the Archdiocese, Mayor Braden Johnson pushed back.
All right, good afternoon, everyone.
Telling reporters the city is now working with the Archdiocese to bring one shelter online.
But it's not just as simple as, here's a building, take it. There's work that has to be done to build it out, to make it suitable.
But Johnson sidestepped our questions about calls for increased transparency.
We've seen the bed rates, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. I mean, I guess that's still the question that's outstanding. Would you support more transparency, more efforts to share those records?
Thank you for that question. Again, we're meeting you right where you are.
That response did not answer our questions about the calls for more transparency. Bennett Haberly, NBC5 investigates.